All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And today, we got 5 questions for Andrew Yang about how he's going to handle this debate tonight. Actually, well, not about how he's going to handle the debate, but 5 subjects which we think should be conversed about during the debate stage. And we also want to talk about tonight's debate. A lot of speculation out there. What he could do, what he should do. And to be honest with you, Cody, I have yet to find a common thread in all of the commentary that I have heard today about the shoulds of tonight. There is a very diverse field of opinion as to what Andrew Yang should do, but we do have some specific questions. So Cody, tell us what's going on.
Well, I was going through just looking at some of the stuff tonight about the debate coming up. Again, the debate's going to be on as you guys are watching this probably a few hours from now. Tonight in Atlanta, it is the big November debate. We'll have more coming up in December.
Tyler Perry Studios.
Yes. Anyway, I had a couple questions going through this. So the first question I had for you coming into this debate, right, is how much, if any, do you think Andrew Yang should talk impeachment tonight at the debate? Because literally impeachment hearings are going on as we speak, right? So who do you think? I mean, how much do you think Andrew Yang should be talking impeachment? Again, here's a little snippet I pulled up from CBS News. There's no word on whether the president will be watching tonight's Democratic debate, but his campaign will be making his presence known in Atlanta beforehand with an aerial banner reading "Democrat socialism will destroy Atlanta jobs" and a full-page newspaper ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So beyond impeachment itself, Trump himself is making his presence known. So how much do you think Yang should? Or, I mean, obviously, if they ask him directly, he can't just dodge the question, right? But do you think it's a topic he should try to steer clear of, or should he try to wade into those waters? Because, I mean, it is literally, that's what's been on TV all day today. It is a big story. I'm curious what you think about that. And then I have a kind of interesting data point to show you as well.
Okay. Andrew Yang does well when he is above the fray. And I think he has done well when he's said, without going into the Trump's a racist, I think he's done well when he says, you know, oftentimes we're blaming illegal immigration for replacing jobs that actually robots are taking. Let's talk automation. And I also agree in his very well-measured words that he had on The View when he said, look, if we're talking about Trump, he's winning. So first off, personally, I just think the impeachment's a farce, and it actually frustrates me when I see people talking about this as though it's an actual thing. It's not a thing. It's just something really it's like the 5th iteration of them just trying to get rid of the president. And the data shows people are tuning out. Just in the past couple of days, there's been a 10% decrease in support for the impeachment inquiry.
Well, that's what I want to show you. This is actually 538 has been doing a just kind of long-running graph, and you'll notice you can kind of track impeachment support over the months, and you'll notice how there was a point where the gold line here is the support line. You'll notice there's a point where the support for impeachment actually kind of really spiked up. But yes, you'll notice as we get further and further toward the end of this year, it is kind of reaching that middle point again of like, you'll notice almost where it started way back in March. We're getting very close to that. And I do think that it is interesting because it is like I said, if you were to just turn the TV on today, what's the biggest story of the day? That was what everyone talked about. So it would be weird omitting it, but at the same time, yeah, it seems to be, if you want to talk about divisive, is 47 for, 45 against divisive. That's basically, it's almost like as close to like functional 50-50 as it gets, right? Not even like real 50-50 when you have this big of a sample size, but like, are we getting to the point where it's not too popular really to talk about? It's not universally popular enough to weigh
whenever
into.
You're in the.
But also, I wonder what these numbers look like for Democrats. I believe these are across the nation. This is not a Democrat specific.
Well,
maybe with Democrats, it is higher, it is more popular. And if he's trying to get the primary tonight, that's all I'm saying. That's the other end of it.
I think that as we go deeper into the primaries, now we're coming up, 4th, 5th, 6th primary debates, I should have said. The deeper we get into the debates, the more the average person starts tuning in. And the average person is tired of the orange man bad, let's impeach him narrative. I've often compared them to me. I, as a Republican who did not agree nor like Hillary Clinton, really got tired of hearing about it after Republicans had their chance in the hearing over the email server. And that woman sat there, that poor lady was there for 11 hours with no bathroom breaks or something like that, getting grilled by Republicans in the oversight committee. And you look at that.
We have other ones to get to, so I just want
No, I get that.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that even if I, as a Republican, thought, you know what, if she sat through those 11 hours and you couldn't find a smoking gun, you have to drop it. I think the average American is so tired of the talk of impeachment and anti-Trumpism. They kind of think it's been 3 years. If you haven't found something, drop it. So yes, I think it's strategically bad. I've always thought it was morally bad, but I think it's strategically bad also for Andrew Yang to talk about it.
Okay, cool. Like I said, it is tough because I would say probably on a Democratic, if you were to look at Democrat polls from registered Democrat voters, is what I'm trying to say, there'd probably be more support for impeachment, I would guess, than just across the country because it is divisive, right? So
I think it looks good when he says, if we're talking about him, he's winning. And he once again establishes himself as the adult in the room.
Anyway, moving on, but it's a good point. It is. That's why I wanted to bring it up because it is interesting, right? It is something big going on. Anyway, my second question I had for you: who, if any, on the debate stage tonight, should Andrew Yang go after? Obviously, Tulsi Gabbard has made her campaign on kneecapping people on the debate stage. I don't know if Andrew Yang is that kind of like attack dog mentality, personality.
I'm afraid
Tulsi
that would
has.
come across as being forced.
But like I said, not like that. But I could see maybe a pointed comment towards someone like a Pete Buttigieg or an Elizabeth, just basically saying like, hey, you guys, like a Pete Buttigieg for maybe not calling him out for adopting one of his policies, maybe kind of press him on one of those and really see if, hey, if we're both talking the same thing here, who really knows what we're talking about? You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, hey, Elizabeth Warren, you're not really Native American. You know what I mean? Like, it can be more substantive, but do you think he's in a position where that could be beneficial to him? Because remember, I want to bring up, there was a moment at the last debate where they were talking about automation with automation with Elizabeth Warren. Him were going back and forth a little bit, and Warren's like, well, I'll have to look at the data. He's like, I have looked at the data. I have, like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be the way Tulsi is a little bit more, like I said, attack doggish. I wonder, like I said, do you think it will help him to do it to anyone, one, and then two, anyone in particular? First, real quickly, me, I think pointing out something like, I think attacking Pete on some of the substance, some of the ideas they share, because one, you know what, if he pushes Pete on it and Pete's got great answers, it's a gamble, but it also could show that, look, we're talking the same thing, but one of us actually knows what we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yes. This is where I think Andrew Yang's sweet spot is. Because he definitely has to go on the attack. Okay, at the same time, you don't want to look like an attack dog or that ends up hurting you almost as much as it helps you. One of the sweet spot where I think he needs to be is where he was when he was asked by on CNN about Mayor Bloomberg supposedly entering the race as a Democrat. And he said, I am friendly with Mayor Bloomberg. At the same time, he didn't say at the same time, he said, but there are things that money can't buy. And he was referencing the fact that this late in the game, you can't just buy ground support and grassroots support and the people that will go knocking doors for you and so on and so forth.
Tell Tom Steyer, man.
Yeah, shout out. Unless Tom Steyer, you got that kind of money. No, I'm just
probably going to be at the December debate as well.
Yeah, Bloomberg is actually wealthier than Tom Steyer even, but
by a good amount.
Yeah, by I think a magnitude of almost 10 or 20 or something obscene like
that.
How
about billions of dollars? Is that enough? He's worth billions more.
It's hardcore. It's like that realm of money where you're just like, I don't even know how I would spend it. You know what I'm saying? I would just start my own country because I have a country's GDP.
Or when they talk sports contracts and they're like, what? All we had to do was give $5 million a year. They could have kept, $5 million a year. It's all he had to do. You know, it's funny when you get these big numbers.
So
anyway.
I think his sweet spot is saying, I am friendly with so-and-so, but, and I also think another great thing he should do is he could say, I know this is big on Democrats that we always want to do this. However, there is a better way. He's done that with gun control. He said, look, what his comments on that Saga shooting that he had at his, not Atlanta rally, he's going to Atlanta, at the Nevada rally 2 or 3 days ago were very pointed. And he said, yeah, we focus too much on guns. Yes, there are inroads we need to make into the actual control of the actual guns. However, in our obsession with this talking point, we are missing this glaring reality, and I'm here to address the glaring reality.
Really quickly, one thing I thought was really fascinating, because yes, over the weekend we were in Las Vegas. We watched Andrew Yang at his Bet on Yang rally, and then a couple hours later we saw him speaking at the First in the West Dinner. One thing I thought was fascinating when they brought Saugus, the thing at the event in Saugus up, Andrew was talking about, he's like, I looked in really deeply into this incident, to how it happened and who the background of the person involved and everything. And he references he used a revolver, like a 6-shooter revolver, and he said just walked right up to him. Like the drills they do wouldn't have helped, like maybe a metal detector. I thought was telling. Later on that night, we saw Joe Biden speak, and Joe Biden said we have to ban assault weapons and high capacity magazines. Yeah. I thought it was interesting that Andrew Yang looked into the event and noticed how, neither of those would stop this. Maybe we should look into things that'll help. And then you see some candidates like Joe Biden go up there and just say, talking point. And then you see Andrew, I looked into the incident, and uniquely, none of the things we talk about, the drills wouldn't have helped, banning high-capacity magazines wouldn't have helped. He was a kid, he couldn't have it anyway. Like, all these things wouldn't have helped. So instead of just repeating them, it's interesting seeing Andrew, like you said, take an idea that's kind of in the public, like the public square, what we're talking about, and then approach it from an angle that's a little bit more of like a less BSing angle, I guess.
Well, yeah, I really think that, just like I said, there's a sweet spot. In that moment, I think if he would, first off, he's got to learn how to interrupt and speak up for himself. I'm sorry, but he has to learn how to interrupt and speak up for himself. Because the second Joe Biden says that, if Andrew Yang were to interject, and Andrew, I know that you know the definition of interject.
Well, how about this? Let's just wrap this into, because the next question I was going to have for you,
okay,
what can Andrew do to increase his talk time? So,
I
guess we'll just get to that now.
Okay, we'll get to that next.
So like, what do you think? Because I think that was a good point you made. That Andrew's probably best on, maybe not like attacking, but it would be good for him to call and say, "Look, we're all friends on the stage. We all have great. We all want the best. We all want good for people. But I do think this is where so and so may be going."
And if he could start doing that, if he could really start doing that, I think there was a craving and a thirst.
Could it help him speak more as well, perhaps?
There's a craving and a thirst for well-measured, moderate words. Not social activism on the stage.
Again, the reason why I brought it up, Andrew Yang was the 4th least talk time candidate of the last debate. So
yeah,
and it's been a frequent trend. The reason why I bring up, what can you do to increase talk?
Yeah, so I think there's a craving for moderates, and he would come across as very moderate if he could say, "Look, we're all friends. However, Joe, I've looked into the most recent accident, and it wasn't because of 20-round magazines. It wasn't because of AR-15s. It wasn't because of all these talking points we have. There's actually nothing on existing law that could have changed this except for maybe a metal detector at the school. However, we have yet to address mental health of boys that have abusive, abusive fathers, or that find their fathers dead like the Saugus shooter did, and so on and so forth. We need to be addressing these glaring examples. So yeah, if he could interject with well-measured words, then I really think that would not only simultaneously increase his talk time, but increase his perceived strength as a future leader.
I
We're
agree.
at question 4 now, right? What's question 5?
Well, I just really quickly wanted to put my own little angle on the talk time and stuff, because I do think it's important to bring up that he has not spoken very much, and it has been because it has almost seemed like there's been a facet of his debate game missing. Other candidates have, and I think it is the poking and prodding of others. I think if Andrew Yang spent more time poking at, prodding, and speaking over other people, he would talk more. I think because he's omitted that from his strategy, he doesn't. So either, I think it'll be the same thing. He will either once again be at the bottom, because it almost feels like a deliberate strategy at this point, or we will see him get a little bit more. And I honestly imagine if we see because no offense to anyone out there, I see it in person. When I say I've been to the debates yet in person, we're going to go hopefully to December, but I've seen him speak in person 3, 4, 5 times now. The guy that walks out into these rally stages and the guy who walks out on the debate stage is not quite the same guy yet. He definitely still has the Andrew Yang experience, hasn't transcended to the debate stage yet. It's when you see him at these rallies and even some of these other events, like we saw him at the AA Asian American Pacific Islander event. He comes out and it's like a rock star. I haven't seen him have that same oomph when he comes out on the stage at the debates. So I think I think it's a little bit of both. One, strategy. 2, he just doesn't have that. But again, a lot of these people have been around this for 20 years. It's something he's kind of new to this realm. So there we go. Anyway, next question coming up. Because obviously, while this debate is coming on tonight, there's a debate coming up about a month in December. And actually, we're about 3 weeks away from the qualifying period closing. And Andrew Yang still has to reach one more poll to actually qualify. Now, On top of that, there's a very, very, very important early state that Andrew Yang has been struggling in the state of Iowa. So
Yes.
I was going to ask you, Cardin, because the debate tonight, of course, is in Atlanta, Georgia. Not very much kind of, Iowa, more Midwest, Atlanta, Georgia, more Southeast as far as just culturally. Do you think there's anything he could say tonight on the debate stage that would help him in Iowa? Is there anything any pitch you can make on the stage tonight to help him in the state of Iowa?
I think there's a reason why Pete Buttigieg is doing so well in Iowa and is kind of leading it, is because, I hate to use this example because it's a little bit cruel, but I was watching Crystal Ball talking with Sauger on the Hill, and they mentioned a tweet that got them both rolling in their seats, because apparently Sauger said they're both from the South or have some kind of connection to the South, where somebody said that Pete Buttigieg's campaign staffers are just like the campy evangelical Christian counselors I had at youth camp as a kid. And Iowans are different. I mean, they go to they go to church a lot on Sundays. It's the breadbasket of America. Even the more liberal Democrats are still very, very traditional in a lot of ways. And if anybody knows kind of like your average Midwestern Christian family, Pete Buttigieg kind of looks like that and kind of acts like that and can get his dancers to do the cute little cheers. And he's kind of like that campy, youth counselor with just enough of an edge because, he served in the military, or enough of an edge because he's got, a husband instead of a wife. And, he's like the edgy camp counselor was, I think, the exact way they put it.
Is my point.
So I think if Yang were to try and repeat that, it would look forced and unnatural. So one thing he has done a very poor job of.
He shouldn't do the high hope stance on stage.
Yeah, he shouldn't do the high hope stance on stage. But Pete Buttigieg, argue about how you want to interpret scripture saying a man shall not lay with a man. You can argue doctrine all day long. But something that Pete Buttigieg does well that I think serves him in Iowa is he quotes from the Bible. He mentions scripture. He talks about how he attends
church
on
Sundays. At least he's talking a language, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah,
maybe there's disagreements there, but they're speaking a similar language.
They're speaking a similar language, and regardless of how you interpret the Apostle Paul's, commandments in the book of Acts, sorry, not in the book of Acts, but the book of whatever. At least you're not like Donald Trump showing up and saying, so it says in 2 Corinthians, when it's like 2 Corinthians.
I agree with the idea though, that it's like maybe there's disagreements between, you're much closer to somebody that you disagree with a little bit of scripture with than you are with someone who doesn't talk scripture at all.
Yeah,
so
and he avoids religion like the plague.
No, but here's the weird thing. That's honestly a video on itself, Andrew Yang's, because Andrew Yang, sometimes in some environments, they ask him and he says, oh, my kids are raised Christian. They go with my wife all the time. That's it. And sometimes they ask and he goes, oh, well, I'm very much like, what's the word, like agnostic in ways. Like, it seems like the answer on that is a little bit almost temperamental for him, but that's one thing.
But I'm telling you, it's costing him. What people don't understand. I do think it's
a good point, but there's a couple more things I want to get to.
Okay.
Because I think it's a good point there. I think that's a good.
Well, here, I'll wrap it up in a sentence. Basically, I will say the modern American Christian, as a result of the culture war and also specific legislation against Christian churches, feels under attack. Okay, they feel under attack, and they're far more comfortable with somebody that they feel is on their team and won't go after their religious freedoms.
Well, also, who else is the religious candidate as a front runner? Is it like is Bernie Sanders? People have to tell you Bernie Sanders is Jewish because he will never tell you he's Jewish for some reason. I don't know why. It doesn't come up very often.
Well,
and then you look at Warren and Biden. None of these candidates really speak like that.
None of those candidates speak the language, and so much of politics, especially with women voters, is about trust. Okay, so much of how you do business and so much of how you vote is about trust. And a guy that speaks your language is going to gain the trust of your average Christian, evangelical or not, a lot faster than somebody that doesn't. And Andrew Yang has veered away from the religious topic so much. I don't think you have to fake it. You know what I'm saying? Don't fake you're a Christian when you're not, but also don't stray away when somebody says, oh, so what religion are you? Don't be like, agnostic. I love, because then when people see that kind of attitude, they sense, oh, you're not for me. And if you're not for me in our modern political environment, you must therefore be against me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a video in itself, Andrew Yang's kind of relationship with I believe it's Christianity. I don't know religion. Because like I said, I have seen interviews where he just immediately says, oh, yes, my kids go to church with my wife. They have their whole life.
But it seems like you're
That's how we're
distancing
raising
yourself from it.
Yeah.
And if
But-
you're distancing yourself from Christianity, I feel like you're distancing yourself from me as the psychology of a lot of these people.
I guess. I just think it seems like he hasn't really figured out the messaging he really wants to go with on that, which is interesting. I have no opinion either way. I think it is interesting. So, last thing I want to bring up, and then, one more thing to talk about after. But last thing I want to bring up is how much should Andrew Yang talk about UBI automation? And what I mean by that is specifically, do you think it's something that, because again, we'll highlight again that he didn't speak very much at the last debate, so he doesn't have a lot of time to talk in general. But do you think that Andrew Yang's strategy in this debate should be to try and force automation into the discussion more, or, which to be honest, I'll give you my answer, I don't think you should do that. Or do you think it really should be? Because I think the way you talk a lot in these debates and the way you really get a lot of your messaging across in these debates, the way you do it is by finding ways to explain how your platforms as a cohesive, how all your platforms work together to solve each issue individually. I think if he turns it into too much of a UBI automation thing, it could be bad for him. I think the best way to go about it is to explain more broadly, which he generally does, by the way. If you ask him a question, say, well, this is how my policies could actually help solve this, or here's how I am thinking about addressing these problems. I think he's better off kind of going wherever the debate takes him than trying to say, because I have seen a couple debates where it was like you could ask him, so Andrew, the other day you ran a TV ad. How much?
How do you stop Ebola in Africa? Yeah. Well, if every American had $1,000, they might be able to donate more to Ebola research.
Better point, yes. There was one debate where I was like that. I don't think that's the way to go. I think a better way to go is to actually honestly explain, well, these are how I have different policies that can work together to help address it. That's my point. I don't know what you think, but that's what I think.
I think you're right. Definitely don't avoid it, because it is what separates you and distinguishes you from the pack. So he can't avoid it, and he has to weave it into certain arguments because it is his distinguishing factor. But if he is ever sitting there thinking, how do I weave it into the conversation, then you're thinking it wrong. There's going to be plenty of places where it should naturally and organically come up in your psychology that it will always work against you if you feel like something is artificial. That's why Joe Biden, I think, is floundering and has floundered from the beginning, because Joe Biden is completely establishment. Okay. And when he tried to act like a social activist in his first video declaring his candidacy, everybody looked at him and thought, oh, that's not real. That's artificial. And especially amongst millennials, authenticity is so high on what we like and almost what we demand from a candidate in order to gain our trust is authenticity. So as long as it doesn't come across as inauthentic, then I think he will do well to include it, as long as it's not forced.
No, of course, exactly. Like I said, I think the way you win these debates is by finding a way to explain overall.
Interjection, though, I think is huge. I think it's talk time, and he's got to learn to interject. Andrew, just sit here in the studio, and me and Cody will talk. And then if you can't get at least 15 minutes in a 45-minute stream, then you're doing it wrong. We'll teach you how to interject.
Again, that's why it almost comes across to me as a choice. So better way. It comes across to me more like that is a decision they've made. So those are the 5 questions we have. There's one last thing I want to just really quickly highlight because we've gone a little bit long here. Andrew Yang did one more thing for the debates. Ahead of the debates, Andrew Yang created and released a playlist.
Pandering.
Honoring the all-female panel featuring an all-female playlist.
Oh, see, the headline I thought said pandering, but you say it said honoring. Oh, okay. So I must have misread that.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Either way, going through these, Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys, great song.
That's a good song.
I'm not familiar with all these songs. Survivor by Destiny Childs. All right. Dog Days Forever by Florence and the Machine.
Ooh, I'm a big fan of Florence.
That's a very good song. Like I said, not a huge Taylor Swift person, just not familiar. Not familiar with Lady Gaga. Know that song. And yeah. So I just want to throw it in there as well. I thought it was kind of funny and humorous, a way to wrap this up. But anyway, so those are the 5 questions we had for Andrew Yang going into tonight's debate. I don't know what you guys are thinking at home. Let us know in the comments if you disagree, if you agree. If he does or doesn't do any of these things, feel free to come back in the comments and let us know how right or wrong we were. Probably wrong, but hey, either way,
probably wrong.
We'll be fine with it. And Carden.
I was actually just going to mirror what you said. I have heard every theory as to what Andrew Yang should do from the chattering class over the past 48 hours that I I completely say have your own opinion, do your own research when it comes to this topic, because right now everything is up in the air. Percentages are up in the air. Front runnerships are up in the air. Who's a dark horse is up in the air. Everything is so up in the air. Anybody that tells you they know how one should act in this moment and what one should do is completely lying to you, including us. So I'm not going to tell you. You know what I'm saying? We are so dedicated to our idea of journalistic integrity and opinion on matters that we will just tell you when we do not know. And I'll tell you what I think his sweet spots are, and I tell you what I think he should do. But anybody that says they know what he should do is lying to you. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. If you want to, and speaking of hats, I was going to plug the hats. We're behind on 2 hats. If you ordered a hat, I had a problem with an order on 2 hats where we'd lost the shipping information, but now we got it back, and I'm actually sending those hats out. So there's 2 poor of our fans. I'm going to hook you up with something else. Maybe I have to give you a second hat or something like that for free. But there are 2 hats, 2 people that ordered hats that are getting a really late order. We apologize. Everybody else got theirs on time. If you do want to purchase Problem Solver Politics hat, make sure you go to problemsolverpolitics.com, where you can also donate to our channel through the PayPal link there. Also, make sure that you check us out on the streams Tuesdays and Thursdays. Also, give us a call. Leave us a voicemail at 1-833-PSP-RADIO. This is Problem Solver Politics.